Okay, so you have seen the recent headlines. You know what's going on. The FBI is sounding the alarm that China could be a moment away from a massive cyber attack on the United States through multiple channels. What do you make of it?
Well, I think there's credibility there. We've been watching their infiltrations within our infrastructure for a very long time. It's been proven out that these guys have been sort of burrowing in and persisting over a very long period of time. So, end of the day, when and how and exactly in what capacity is yet to be determined. But I do think it's a credible threat. I don't think this is something that's hyperbolic or distracting. We've felt several rumblings around things happening that felt like cyber-esque initiatives by nation state actors. We couldn't necessarily put our finger on it, but I think that ultimately the raw intelligence that the FBI and the other intelligence community members get, usually they don't sound the alarm publicly unless there's something pretty credible. So fair assessment there.
When you and I spoke last time, I was doing a series on hospitals being very vulnerable and being a very attractive target to hackers. Do you still think that that is top of the list or high up on the list of places where we're vulnerable?
Indeed, Mike. Hospitals, unfortunately, just like any other kind of mission critical environment, are going to be at the top of the list of threat actors because they know they're going to put people under immense amount of pressure when they attack systems that need to stay online in a consistent and persistent fashion. So hospitals are classically that, right? So are water treatment facilities. So are things like power grids, everything that we hear about. Airports, air traffic control, communication lines. We saw the little blip that we had not too long ago. What is it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, regarding the cell phone carriers, and we all lost connectivity, some more than others, depending on the network you were on, for a matter of hours, and everyone lost their minds over it. And that is a good indicator that when you take something away that people are used to and have comfort with and feel are actually always going to be around and people take for granted, when those go away, especially something like medical treatment or water treatment, you'll cause mass panic, and you'll put yourself in a very powerful position as an adversary. And that's exactly why these types of organizations are top of the list.
In Florida, we've seen examples of water infrastructure and hospitals being targeted by hackers. And I wonder, what are some of the other places that maybe we're not thinking of that would really be that would put us in a chokehold? You touched on the cell phones. Of course, cell phones and our ability to communicate. You said everybody freaks out when they can't get to their cell phone. So we know that one. But is there one that you think isn't widely thought about and could potentially catch us by surprise? Like, whoa, I didn't know they were targeting that.
Yeah, so it's an interesting overlay to everything else. And it's actually the supply chain, and it's places like ports and logistics. If you can stifle or limit the ability for movement to happen with logistics or transfer of goods from one place to another, whether it's the origin point of the country it's coming from, or maybe the port or depot where it may be supposed to be leaving from and it can't because of that, that's another thing that can cause mass panic, because then you create shortages. And that, again, as we've seen through a variety of situations, causes a lot of issues. And what I mean by that is that if you're looking at warehouse facilities that have automated systems for inventorying, and those systems go down and they're electronic and they're computerized, and those can be attacked because they have weak security protocols in place, that can stop the ability for those materials to leave. Same with fuel, like we saw with the Colonial Pipeline hit. They didn't actually attack in Colonial Pipeline the actual fueling capability. They attacked the billing systems, and it forced the organization to limit the ability to sell fuel. So there's things like that are just under the surface of what's obvious that people don't realize can actually have a huge ripple effect.
I don't want to open up the book of your trade secrets, but I wonder if you could just talk in general about how you're advising your clients about what kind of posture they should be in right now, and what, if anything, they can do given this warning.
Absolutely. So, as you well know, Mike, I have a unique ability with my company and my team to find where threat actors tend to be focusing and where they're putting themselves into. So that gives me an unprecedented ability to help my clients understand where the threat may be coming from. So my advice has been pretty much to buckle down your own environment as much as you possibly can. Limit your exposure to third-party partners or supply chain partners that you don't have confidence with their own sort of security protocols and procedures, and certainly don't send any critical information to places that you don't quite know or is going to keep your data safe, because that'll help stifle the proliferation or the spread, if you will. Because you have to think about these threat actors with the way they deploy their malware. It's just like a biological virus. It looks for some sort of proximity or connectivity to move from one place to another. So as long as we can break those bounds between one organization to another, or binds between one organization and another, we can stop that. So that's been my core advice lately, and part of my confidence in what Director Wray is saying is because I see in my own data indications that this indeed is true.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but the last time that we spoke, and mind you, you had some considerable more time to prepare for that interview. But you told me, Mike, I know of some targets in Florida that are either in the crosshairs or they're in the throes of a cyber attack right now. Do you know of any in our state right now?
Unfortunately, I do. I'm able to look at we'll call it the collective IP space of a region, and ascertain just how much communication is going on from those entities, be it organizations that are private or public, and how much is communicating out from those entities to threat actor infrastructure. And unfortunately, Mike, there is a substantial amount in Florida and other states.
It's unbelievable. What question am I not asking you, right? You know a lot about this. And I bet there's one that I'm not thinking of, and you're like, Mike, you ought to go here. Tell me about it.
You know, it's a great question, Mike. I think one of the key things that people ask a lot is, well, is this a threat that's going to impact, big corporate, or is it a government concern? And is the government meant to handle all this? And is it really going to affect the everyday average person? Is it going to mess with the grandma sitting in Boca Raton in her house? Yes, it will. Now, does that mean that grandma in Boca Raton needs to take proactive cyber actions? Absolutely not. But preparation is key. I'm not trying to endorse everyone to be a doomsday prepper or whatever, but I do think that just like we treat in Florida anything like a natural disaster with a level of seriousness, this needs to be the same. This needs to be treated with the same level of seriousness. Get some extra water, get some extra canned food, have some backup plans to electricity and gas going out. I'm not saying it's imminent. I'm just saying that preparation and luck favors the prepared. And in the case of something like this, when we don't quite know when and where and how, that is indeed something that's good to do. On the flip side of it, Mike, I will say this, because I'm always a doom and gloom guy with these conversations, but I will say something that's very important. It would be a very precarious thing for a nation state actor, we'll just leave it at that, to attack another country in a cyber capacity that impacts them kinetically, because that would warrant an act of war. And it would essentially be in parallel with something like a physical attack. And so I think that while this is something of seriousness, I don't quite know yet how dramatic of an attack they will have on us, where we'll feel it in the way that we're talking about, like a Die Hard movie, because that would constitute an act of war that would then literally warrant a response back that might be very much a physical attack back. And they don't want that either. So the interesting thing about this is cyber is happening on a regular basis. The cyber war is underway. It's just that to what degree and what heightened tensions will it get to, and will it trigger something that will feel in the mainstream or not, is the question. So, and how much is kept from us with regard to some of these things is also the problem. So things may be happening, but they may be mitigated and squelched from a PR perspective, which is understandable. And sometimes that has to happen.
I read a lot about the strategy might be to cyber attack as a distraction, so then China moves on Taiwan. Is that just spin?
Yes.
Is that just talking heads on cable news? Or do you believe, based on what you've seen or what you know, that there could be some wisdom in that theory?
Mike, very safe to say that a cyber distraction or a misdirection tactic is 100% part of the standard operating procedure of modern warfare. 100%. It was utilized during the Russian-Ukrainian situation. It was utilized during the Arab mess, and it was utilized very much during the Israel-Iran situation. Distractions happen fundamentally to pull away resources into other directions so that things can happen. So without question in my mind, that is a tactic that's going to be just like influence campaigns are utilized ubiquitously now. So I don't think anyone's ever surprised about that when it comes to trying to sway opinion or move things. The psychological operations that are effectively force multiplied with cyber are 100% in play, as is this kind of stuff as well, where even if it's nothing that's meant to cripple a nation, it'll be distracting enough to where, look over here while we do this over here. Couldn't agree more. I think it's absolutely going to be part and parcel to any kind of strategy by any nation state.